Yo, what's up, man? I just wanted to do a somewhat of a part two to that video about these some of these Asian folks donating money to the Proud Boys. But I wanted to show you this clip right quick to show you that it's kind of like they're all on the same side. A lot of these Asian folks and these white supremacists, they all on the same side, throwing black folks and black men under the bus because they want to get ingrained with whiteness. Even Michael Jai kind of called it out.
What's going on right now, right? God help them. Stop Asian hate. I mean, come on, this is absolutely wrong. But I want you to notice one thing: that stop Asian hate. You go, okay, similar to Black Lives Matter, right? But what's different? There's no white opposition to stop Asian hate at all.
Facts. Because they all working together.
If for the history of black people trying to stand up for each other, for the history of saying black is beautiful, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. But wait a minute, no, all lives, stop Asian hate. Okay.
Yeah, nobody's
saying stop all hate.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So it's like,
yeah, you're right.
I'm just going,
Facts.
This is a very teachable moment. We can learn something here. It's right in front of us right now. Stop Asian hate. I don't hear nothing. Nothing. Why are people so comfortable when black people say, stop killing us, stop? No. Chime in on your matters. Why is that? Is there a thing with this, you think you own us, or is it the fear of retribution for what you've done? Let's be honest. It's a teachable subject. It's a teachable time.
Yeah.
So I would like people to ask themselves, all the people who said, no, all lives matter, what are you saying? What was your first thought when they said stop Asian hate? What did you think? Did you go, of course, that's terrible for what's happening to Asians. But when you heard Black Lives Matter, what was your next thought? Wait a minute.
White people.
Why would you dare oppose that?
Yeah. No, that's a
Mr. Clean.
You're right. I've never heard
The
someone say
mayonnaise mafiosi.
Right.
It sounds stupid when you say it out.
It would sound as stupid as all lives matter.
The mayonnaise mafioso.
So he said exactly what I've been thinking, and I've been sitting back and watching. So, I mean, there's nothing more to really say because Michael J. White said everything that's needed to say. So I'm only going to pose a question. Where is that opposition? And why isn't there a stop all hate response or rebuttal to stop Asian hate? What do you guys think about that?
Real quick, I just want to tell you it's called programming and conditioning. You program, which means you tell them what you want them to do, right? And then you condition them to do it. Whether by education, by entertainment, by history, by technology, whatever it is you got to do, first you got to program them. This is what we want you to do. This is how you're going to do it.
So basically through subliminal messaging, and just as you say, as through conditioning, this is how you spread a message.
Just when you get to it, I got a lot of good bit of Asian friends. At one point, I think I would have thought, I would have been married to one, But the fact
You and me both.
like he said, it's a program thing because I think we as society in America, the only opposition for racism, you don't think racism with no other race but black to white. When you say it like that, and then going off what Craig said, and then going off what Michael J said, this is one of those times to where all the things that the black people are trying to do or wanted to do, not even going to mention Black Lives Matter, but just in general to say, Black Lives Matter. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's right. All lives matter. But when they say Asian hate, just to know that nobody is is talking junk about it. Nobody is opposing it. Nobody is saying anything about it. It's like, all right, y'all hate black people that much? Y'all dislike black people that much?
So here is my thought. Like I said, of course, there's been a crazy upsurge in anti-Asian crimes and violence since Donald Trump's presidency. But of course, and giving it truthful context, it has been going on for a long time. But I surmise that the reason that there is no real opposition to stop Asian hate, why you don't see people running out the gate saying, no, stop all hate. We need to stop hating everybody, not just Asians. We need to stop hating here. So are you saying that, we should only stop hating Asians? And what about white people? What about... The only reason we haven't done that is because the opposition is not white people.
Facts.
Because it's being painted as black people
Facts.
are the main antagonists to
Facts.
Asian hate. Because when it was Black Lives Matter, you knew that the racism that we're talking about is coming from the majority of white people and white supremacist structure. So people took it personally and they took offense. So it's like, no. What are you saying? You saying Black Lives Matter more? Or are you saying only Black Lives Matter? So that's when they did that whole mental gymnastics thing. But if it's stop Asian hate, it's like, yeah, stop Asian hate because look at what those black people are doing to those Asians. Like that's the narrative.
That's the narrative
that they're doing. So that's why they don't have any opposition, because they themselves don't feel threatened, even though they're very well responsible for it and just has as much of a hand in it as anyone. They don't feel that there's an actual backlash because there is a correlation when it comes to Asian and whiteness.
Yep.
There is a pseudo acceptance there because the Asian community has this obsession, if you will,
with whiteness.
And don't take my word for it. So we're going to watch another little clip here. And this one's a little long. That's why I wanted to get this one done early. But it's about 5 minutes. But she's speaking a lot of truth. So this is Cheyenne Lynn. She also runs a channel on YouTube. Really good stuff. So for you listeners, go check her out. Her name is Cheyenne. It's Cheyenne Lynn, Lin. So here's what she has to say about the Asian obsession with whiteness and how it correlates to anti-black.
See, even they're saying this. This is coming out of their mouth. But when I say it, I get gaslighted. Or I can't say this because I haven't traveled, so I gotta do this and that. Like, it's ridiculous, man.
Discrimination in Asia, Asian society, and also in American society. Let's check it out.
Comment that I get a lot when I make videos about beauty standards in Asia and how European beauty standards have seeped into Eastern standards of beauty. I always get this same comment that says, what are you talking about? The East, specifically China, Japan, and Korea, have always been obsessed with whiteness. For centuries, no matter what country you come from.
Hold on, what'd she say? Let's go back.
Talking about the East, specifically China, Japan, and Korea, have always
she mentioned the land of the rising sun
with whiteness.
Hold up.
The same comment.
I'm not trying to shit on the land of the rising sun. I'm not, but just trying to make a point.
Says, what are you talking about? The East, specifically China, Japan, and Korea, have always been obsessed with whiteness. For centuries, no matter what country you come from, whether it's the countries I listed previously or any other East or Southeast Asian country, has been obsessed with whiteness even before colonial times. And it is true that whiteness in those countries meant white like a pearl or white like the moon, like a glowing kind of iridescent white rather than the peachy or the kind of peachy white that a lot of white people are just endowed with. However, after the East was opened by white imperialists, we still wanted to be white because white was always associated with goodness, godliness, and just being rich and having a higher class status. And thus we kind of turned our backs on
the white status. Wow.
our darker skin country. Because white was always associated with goodness, godliness, and just being rich and having a higher class status. And thus we kind of turned our backs on our darker skinned countrymen, who we saw as backwards just because they had darker skin. Colorism already existed in the Asian community before white people came over, and after they did, it just got a lot worse. And just because colorism and classism has always existed in Asia and outside of it in the larger diaspora, doesn't mean it was ever okay. And today, we are bombarded with images of white Eurocentric beauty, no matter where you are in the world. And wanting to be white has stayed the same, but the reasons behind it have become ever more insidious. What really grinds my gears is when people say that because Asia has always been obsessed with whiteness, even before the colonial era, that they're immune to Western images and propaganda, because let's be real, no one is. Like, we are all at the mercy of the white hegemony, so let's just own up to it. Like, how can you ignore hundreds of years of colonialism, racism, xenophobia, re-education to hate your own nation and your own skin color? Like, it's beyond me.
And when I say this, I get gaslighted, but it's coming out of her mouth. I get hit with the, it doesn't matter, propaganda doesn't matter. It's about your values. Your values throw all the propaganda out of the window, but not necessarily. Not as a collective. Not collectively, maybe individually, but not collectively.
Skin. A lot of other beauty standards in Asia are still white Eurocentric inspired. Higher nose bridges, jawline reduction surgery to make your face smaller, double eyelid surgery, and others are all there to help Asian people look more white. And yes, maybe some of these standards were influenced by the, for example, auspicious Chinese horoscope, but I doubt it. Like I said before, comments that say Asian people have been obsessed with being white for centuries, even before colonial times, doesn't address colorism or classism in those communities. It's been long said that the wealthy stayed indoors to keep their skin light, where the poor people had to work outside and get dark. However,
and I also heard that they use umbrellas so they don't have to get that sun all on their skin. I heard it's like that in LA. It used to be a brother. He used to make videos on YouTube talking about black male issues and stuff like that. I think his name is Dark Sun 1 or something like that. Something like that. But he mentioned that. That's
in reality,
crazy.
anyone from any class can be a range of skin tones. That's why even in ancient times, aristocrats used unsafe measures and also like pearl creams to lighten their skin. I think that with all the knowledge we have today, people would stop this pursuit of whiteness, but they don't, because they know that they'll be treated better and are more likely to get a job if they have lighter skin. And who can afford those safe whitening treatments? The wealthy. And who's mixing with the upper white echelon of international high society? Light-skinned Asian people who then bring those ideals home and make their darker-skinned countrymen feel inferior. And those dark-skinned people who feel inferior seek out lethal and dangerous treatments to lighten their skin because they're desperate. And yeah, that's sad and horrible, but we shouldn't just wave it off as tradition. Besides beauty standards, there are a lot of other ways that Asian people hold up whiteness, which shows me and should show all of us that Asian people have not evaded centuries of globalization or imperialism like some commentators might think. So, number one, why are half-white Asian babies used to sell everything and are the epitome of class and sophistication, whereas black Asian babies or half-black Asian people are seen as the dregs of society? So, number two, why is it okay for Asian men to date white women but not the other way around? That's more sexist than anything, but I think it still counts, so I'm putting it on the list. 3, why are Asian people obsessed with traveling to European countries and recreating those atmospheres at home? And 4, Why does Hollywood cast white people in Asian roles? Because they know that it'll make big bucks in Asia. White people in Asia are exotic, but they're also seen as smart, cultured, intelligent, beautiful, and all the other positive things you can think of. And yeah, it is shitty that a lot of people in the developing world see their own countries and practices, cultural practices, as backwards, but that was created purposefully by the West, let's say, to make imperialism and exploitation seem okay. We shouldn't deny that we've been influenced by something that was supposed to influence us. And I get that maybe you could say we want what's rare in the community. Let's be real. Let's address the colorism and whiteness issues of today rather than those issues of 1,000 years ago. And just to end, I just want to bring up some current event issues. So, for example, the coronavirus has told us that we were never white. I don't know why a lot of Asian people in America have not realized that they are not white, but I understand the need and want to latch on to that white privilege. But let's just stop it. I think we really need to have some deep and intense conversations about racism and what race is in the Asian community, and have more solidarity with Black and brown people who face the brunt of racism every single day.
Okay, so thank you guys for your patience, but I do think that that was a very enlightening perspective.
Yeah, man, it's some real shit, but it's another video I gotta show you cats.
And for those who are listening, yeah, we're just all over the place, but it's all good. Thank y'all for checking us out. And what we started talking about, we was talking about these crimes and these crazy ass acts that's going on against the Asian community right now. More specifically, culminated with the mass shooting of a guy that drove across 2 counties, stopped at 3 Asian massage parlors, killed 6 Asian women along with 2 white guys. Was it white guys? And I am saying their race for a purpose here, because now there is a narrative that's going on. Of course, the response is, stop Asian hate. That's what you see all on your social media and things of that nature. Different people coming out, standing up and standing in solidarity with the Asian community. And we just got to talking about it. Our good friend, other brother, Philip, was wanted to chime in and give his thoughts and stuff with the time that he had. And so just kind of going over, what are y'all initial thoughts as far as, one, the way, I don't want to say the media, but just for the most part, the way the media is kind of taking care of how they're viewing these recent attacks. And they're saying, the start of it, which is facts, where just the start of it came from Donald Trump and the way he was kind of mocking the coronavirus. He was calling it Kung Flu and the China virus and all of these things. And since then, there were attacks against Asians and discriminations against Asians that started to rise and started to spike right after Donald Trump started to mock it in that manner. So do you guys think that this is a culmination of what he has done, or do you think it's something else? And that's something.
I'm gonna try to skip.
And the guy was like, he talking about mental. We would be saying, Lord, man, I'm just saying, man. It's like I said last week. African Americans don't get the chance to be mentally ill. We don't get the chance to have a bad day. That guy that killed his baby mama over $1,400, he could have been having a bad day. He could have been broke. He went and asked his baby mama to borrow some money, and she said no, so he killed her. You see what I'm saying? But is that what the media is going to say? No. Well, I agree with you on. We see it that way because that's the way it's interpreted and that's the way it's treated. I'm just saying it shouldn't be. If we're going to do for one, we should do for another. That was my whole point of view. But the thing is, though, Craig, the majority of people, the media knows that. I think, to me, I've always said It's all a game. Everybody's tied in with it every way. We just at the bottom don't know what's been going on at the top. But the media knows there's the race relations in America are bad. So
Wait, let me. I don't think the race relations are bad. I think the narrative is bad. And let me give you a prime
I can see
example.
where he's coming
There's
from.
just people
I see
that
where
go
both of them
around
coming from, though.
and they take the King James Bible and they cover it with the Quran, right? They show you the Quran. And then they read passages out of the King James Bible, but the people perceive it as the Quran. And I don't know the scriptures, but it's something like you may kill this person in the event that this happened and this, and it sounds very Islamic-like, but it's Christian in origin. And the people automatically say, yeah, that's wrong. I would never do that. And then they take the cover off. You know what the people are? Mm-hmm. They're in shock. Because they can't fathom how the religion that they're following could say these things, word for word, in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Because the narrative is these people, their religion, their ideology, their culture is different from ours, and therefore because it's different, it is wrong, and we have to perpetuate this narrative. The same thing applies with race. Race is not about dividing people by color, it's about money. It is always rooted in money. If we can make these people seem like the enemy, then our people can find a way to make money and we can work together to stop them from becoming equally economically strong as we are.
So with that said, speaking on that narrative, in regards to, well, let me just say, I agree with both of y'all, because even right before you jumped in, Craig said the same thing. Now, with the guy that shot up his family over a stimulus check, we said he was stupid. But, but as you say, he didn't get the chance to have his mental health evaluated. But as soon as this dude shot up, these Asians, because he didn't get his happy ending like he wanted to, he created his own happy ending. And that's not to speak light or to mock the deaths of it. But the narrative now that's being spent all throughout media is the call for, there's two things that I'm seeing. There's a call on the black community to step up and show the Asian community the way. And there's just all these articles and videos and presentations about how black people can be stronger allies to the Asian community. And then I look at that, and then of course now you see the white conservative and parts of the Asian community come and say, well, yeah, this white guy shot up these Asians and killed these Asians, but it's the black community that's leading the charge of all these Asian attacks. And so they bring up, a few videos here of, a black man attacking an Asian man without context, but you see it on video and, look at this black person attacking this Asian person. It's the black people that's really doing it. So the narrative that I see is, for some reason, once again, like always, black people are being put in the front, in the face, as the face, and they're having to take responsibility for something that has nothing to do with them. And under this guise of, you break out a few videos of some black people attacking Asians and think that, it's a race war. So now they're bringing up this insinuation that there's a race war between black and the Asian community that's being perpetuated and pushed by white conservatives and by bits and parts of the Asian community. Have you guys seen any of this? What I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What I'm seeing is, and this is my response. One, y'all full of shit. Full of shit. Because let's just get something clear here. One, I'm speaking to white conservatives here, because all throughout my Instagram, Twitter, because I try to do my best to follow a good amount of people on each side, just so I'll know to try to keep my ear to the street to understand what's being said over here. What's the vibe over here? Okay, I hear what y'all saying over here. What's the vibe over here?
That's kind of like where I am.
Of course, there's a few people I follow that I actually support and follow because they have a lot of sense. Y'all just don't know how to not keep your foot out your mouth. You don't know how to not show your racism. Anytime a black person, I say this time and time and time again, but it continues to be proven true. For you white conservatives, anytime the black community, mainly rooted with conservative values, but you wonder why blacks will never ever side with Republicans. The reason being is because you continue to shoot and spout racist rhetoric every single time. And no matter how much you try to hide it, it just oozes out of you. It's like popping a pimple or something. It just oozes out of y'all. And even though we're talking about the Asian community, y'all found a way to spin it and say it's black men. Those same black men who had record numbers voting for your Donald Trump.
Facts.
This election, there were more black men that has voted Republican in the history of this country.
Facts.
But yet you still found a way to throw them under the bus.
Under the damn bus.
You still found a way to look at the actions of a few and say it's representative of a whole.
Facts.
You still found a way to throw your bigotry, your prejudice, and your absolute ignorance on a whole race of people.
Facts.
Because it speaks to your base.
Facts.
I don't understand why y'all keep putting y'all foots in your mouths. And it's just going to be those same black people who actually supported y'all, they see this. And there's a whole backlash of people that's like, I have no idea why I even gave y'all the chance. Why I even decided to look and thought I would vote based on my values. Even though I don't understand, or it's not even understand, I don't agree with what y'all do on this side of the table, then I'm a vote based on my values and not so much of who's sitting here or who's sitting there. But the moment I do that, you remind me of why y'all ain't shit.
You ain't shit.
And
you
so,
ain't shit.
Coming to the Asian community, who've been like, yeah, I think y'all need to first look in the mirror before you want to come at the black community and act like we have an anti-Asian agenda. True. It is well documented and known that if there is an anti-anything, there is an anti-black ideology swirling among the Asian community. It's why y'all vote Republican and conservative a lot. There is an actual cultural, spiritual ideology in the Asian community that promotes anti-blackness because y'all believe that, I don't know if y'all heard this part, but I've talked to, a couple of Asians in my day, and we just talk, culture and cultural differences, and what do you learn here? And I'll tell you what we learn here. And there was something that they told me, and it still shocks me to this day. So I was told, and even when I look it up, I able to substantiate it, like, yo, this shit is true. There is a fixation on skin color in the Asian community. I spoke to, learning from someone from Taiwan, from China.
Taiwan, China.
All throughout and far in between. There is a fixation in the ideology on skin color, meaning the lighter your skin color, the higher your ceiling is for social status within the community. They associate it, they say that those who have to be in the sun a lot, their skin are naturally darker, right? But they associate that with poverty. And they associate that with, poor, so that's a low social status. So they do everything they can to stay out of the sun. So much
I'm
so
damn
that
poverty and
they've
poor then.
developed
Shit.
over there in Asia a $31 billion industry
Hold up.
thing they can to stay out of the sun. So much so that they've developed over there in Asia a $31 billion industry based on products that will destroy melanin. Because the lighter your skin, the more opportunity and privilege that you get. And this has been going on for God knows when. I promise, when this person told me this, I sat there with my mouth floored, like, what the fuck? So, of course, you come over to America, then you carry that same ideology with you. But look at that. There's also a structure that's set up on very similar ideals. Not so much of you work in the sun all day. It's just if you have darker skin, you are inferior. Your social status is lower than those with fairer skin. And those who have, once again, a $31 billion industry based on making your skin white. Skin bleaching. Because that has now creeped over into Jamaica, into some of the other islands there. Why? Because there's also a huge Asian presence there.
Wow.
All I'm saying is, when it comes to the Asian community, I have no problem standing in solidarity against racial motivated crimes. Because, of course, yes, we're very much familiar with those. So I can stand in solidarity in stopping Asian hate, but I need y'all first. When you point that finger at the black community to make it seem like, hey, it's these black people that's doing most of these racist crimes, I need y'all to look into the mirror. Because for every video you bring up of a black guy attacking an Asian guy, or whatever the case may be, a black attacking an Asian, yeah, I can bring up the times where y'all gang up like dogs, beating up on women that come into your beauty shops. I can show y'all instances of y'all treating black people that come into your establishments like dogs. I can show y'all how y'all come into the black community, lock up through group economics. I'm not saying group economics is a bad thing, but you will come right into black communities and discriminate against them by selling them their own products. I can show you all of that. And then, again, this ideology that goes back generations, that fairer skin is better. The same ideology that ends with the same conclusion as your white racist person would do in this white supremacist structure. I was told, again, talking to this person, she was like, well, when I go home, you just look up on the billboards. All the billboards that you see, different models and everything, they're white women. I say, in Taiwan? Yeah. There's, so of course, they have a Western belief as far as a standard of beauty over there. So, however we believe over here in the West of what beauty is, they have it over there. So that's what they aspire to do as well. So, all I'm saying, I'm gonna go ahead and get off my little soapbox, because I promise, just reading this, it has me torn, because it's like, I stand with y'all, but the narrative that I see, this quote unquote race war, no, because it's stupid, or trying to perpetuate and once again make black people the scapegoat. Like, we're always got to be the scapegoat, the blame with a shield for something, always. And
Kim said that, Asians
because
is a
it's stupid,
scapegoat,
we're trying to perpetuate.
and he's right, but at the same time, it's like black folks are the scapegoat. We're being scapegoat with this propaganda. I'm sorry, we're being scapegoated, because many of them, they don't want to call out they white gods. They don't want to call out Thor.
And once again make black people the scapegoat. Like, we always got to be the scapegoat, the blame with a shield for something, always. And these accusations, I need y'all to look in the mirror and check your own anti-blackness, because we can go as far back as Frederick Douglass, who stood up for the Asian community when they was being discriminated against.
Facts.
We can stand up for
That was he's referring to the Chinese Exclusion Act. Back in the around the 1800s, when they was discriminating against Chinese Americans, well, Chinese immigrants.
Black leaders back in that day who stood up and fought for Japanese American reparations when they were locked up in internment camps.
Facts.
That's fact. You can look that up. That's history. We fought for y'all. And then there is no denying that every black-led civil rights movement that has been passed and gone on through America, the Asian community has benefited from.
Facts.
So I just need y'all to check that
Everybody has benefited from that. Every minority, so-called people of color in this country benefited from that, to be honest with you.
Blackness that y'all got. Black-led civil rights movement that has been passed and gone on through America, the Asian community has benefited from. So I just need y'all to check that anti-blackness that y'all got, that has been going on and indoctrinated in you for generations, and stop the bullshit. Yeah, we're going to stop Asian hate, but I also need y'all to stop the bullshit. The same way we trying to get America to take accountability for that shit, I'm going to need y'all to do the same. Okay, I'm done. All right.
How much do you think the media plays into that, I guess, race issue?
It's been an issue going back to the 50s. So, as a brief synopsis, basically before 1950, when the Korean War started, there weren't a lot of non-Asians that came to Korea. And of course, during that time period, you had more and more people from the United States, from England, that were coming over. And so you would have children that would shout out, Migukin, Migukin, meaning American, or Weigukin, Weigukin, which means foreigner. So at that time period, there were a lot of African-American males marrying Korean females. But then you start hearing negative stories, especially in the media, about, well, black
Propaganda.
people do this, they're bad people,
Propaganda.
they don't take care of women. So it was used kind of as a propaganda ploy to prevent marriages between Korean women and black men specifically. But it snowballed from there, and even now, when talking to some people who are teaching in schools, it's still an issue for elementary school teachers where they are viewed as not being as good of a teacher if they are black, or there's stories such as black people grow a tail at night. And so you have to be careful about black people. That's told to little kids.
Oh, like
Damn.
they go a tail like that, like a monkey.
Yeah, literally. That.
Damn.
The story that I heard from one teacher is she's noticed one of her students were crying at the end of class. And so she went to see, well, what's going on? And the little girl told her, teacher, I like you, but because you're black, your tail's going to come out at night, and I hope people don't bother you or hit you for that.
Wow.
So that's apparently a story that even went back to Nazi Germany, is what I'm finding, where people said black people had tails and you need to be careful and separate them from other people.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on to the next subject, because that...
Yeah.
Going to the issue of dating, do you think that dating Korean women could be an issue for black men in the country?
It definitely can. Right now, there's a big issue where a lot of black men aren't even allowed in nightclubs.
Damn.
So you have that issue. You also have an issue where people here care a lot about what other people think. So there's pressure from the family if they see their daughter dating a black man. Well, you need to break up with him. Or friends might try to persuade Korean women, you don't want to date a black man because this might happen or that might happen.
So I actually looked at one of your articles titled, Do Korean People Hate Black People? And one of the things you mentioned about dating was that younger Koreans are open to dating black and Latinos. It's like the younger generation is more open to it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. I think for the younger generation, they're more influenced by what they've seen on the internet as far as hip-hop or urban fashion, or for some of them, they've actually gone to school abroad. So they've been around more Black people, more Latino people, whereas the older generation, for a lot of them, they haven't traveled as much or as far. So the only thing they know about Black or Latino culture,
like, most of this is coming from like the older generation anyway. Like, most of that anti-Latin, it's coming from the older generation more than anyway. Because I'm not saying that everybody is like this. Because my brothers online, man, I had got some of these 61-year-old Chinese lady hit me up on these websites. So I'm not saying that every single older generation is like that, but it's definitely out there. And the younger generation, they're way more open. So I'm not saying everything's completely hopeless. That's not the intention of this video. I'm just trying to show you guys the other side of the conversation. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not going against Brother Sitman Jones or Kerry. I'm not going against them. I'm just trying to expose the other side of the conversation. That's all I'm just trying to do.
culture is basically what's shown in movies, and unfortunately, that isn't an accurate or positive portrayal of either culture.
Okay. And you also said in that article that for some South Koreans who had married a Black man, that Black husband, and I'm paraphrasing, the Black husband enjoyed Korean food and culture, that their husband was willing to move back to South Korea, and the Korean woman was able to keep her identity. And most importantly, like, she felt like a princess every day. Do you remember that, or is that something that you still see in South Korea when they do date a Black man?
Yeah, so in that particular case, that was a Korean woman who I met in the States and got to interview. She had actually left her church because the pastor's wife told her that since she had married a Black man,
yeah, she caught hell from that.
Who I met in the States and got to interview, she had actually left her church because the pastor's wife told her that since she had married a Black man, that she was dirty in God's eyes and that God would never love her.
Damn.
And that since her kids were half Black, they could never be forgiven for their sins.
Damn.
And so that sometimes is a common story for Korean women who date and marry Black men, because some of them, unfortunately, have been viewed kind of like prostitutes being with a Black man. But from the stories that I've observed and the people that I've been able to interview personally, the ones who were married to Black men, those Korean women kept their identity more. They did have husbands who are more willing to move back to Korea, and they typically enjoyed a better marriage than Korean women who married a foreigner but who wasn't Black.
Okay. I bring that up because I wanted to ask if you've seen South Korean women who are interested in Black men. Have you seen them being willing to move to where that Black man lived or learn the culture of that Black man?
Definitely. You have some Korean women who do not prefer life in Korea and they are open to moving abroad. So I've seen some stories where some have
he's
moved
not
to
just
Africa,
talking about the other side of the conversation. He's talking about the positive side too. He's talking about it from both sides.
Very open to coming to the U.S.
And to be honest, that's what I want to hear.
Most of the time, the women are very respectful of the culture. The biggest issue that I've seen is sometimes when Korean women are overly into like hip hop culture, they might portray themselves almost like a caricature of what they think Black culture is. And so that ends up being an issue sometimes, but usually the women who are just being themselves, they are very respectful by nature. So it's easier for them to come to the U.S.
One of the signs you can tell them is if they're wearing them damn big ass hoop earrings.
Another question in that subject. Do you think that it may be necessary for a Black guy who wants to date a South Korean woman to give up some of his identity in order to date her, or why not?
That I've seen, and that's the biggest issue that's pointed out to me when I talk to other Koreans as to why a lot of foreigners are not accepted, and they say it's because people don't learn the culture, they don't learn the language, and they're not respectful.
Okay.
So Koreans, in general.
So that's kind of like what Chris is talking about in his videos about, yo, you got to respect the culture and stuff like that. So shout out to Chris.
They don't mind you being yourself because there's a lot of similarities just because we're all human. But when you don't learn more and you don't show proper respect, that's where you have an issue, and that's where those walls start to come up.
Okay. In that article, you also mentioned that Korean Americans were some of the most racist people that you've met. How have your experiences, either socially or romantically, differed between South Koreans and Korean Americans?
The thing that I've noticed, and I've talked to a few of my friends who've been here in Korea and in the States, is that when you are here in Korea, you don't have to prove you're Korean. You're just a Korean person. But when we're around Korean Americans in the States, there's almost this pressure of, I need to prove that I'm a real Korean. I need to prove that I'm a good Korean. And so sometimes we've had experiences where we are around our friends who are Korean American, and if nobody else is there, it's perfectly fine. But when other Koreans start showing up, that's where they start to be shunful. Or sometimes they don't want to be seen with non-Koreans. So you have that mentality. You have others who just openly are opposed from the jump. So I've had even situations where my friends who are Korean American have been told by other Korean Americans, look, you can hang with us, but don't bring that black guy around because we don't want that black guy anywhere near us.
Okay. So,
because, and part of that's due to just the fear that if a black man's coming around, he's there just to take the women.
yeah.
So the last thing that an insecure person would want is someone that they view as a threat to them getting what they want.
So it's a matter of, I guess, Korean Americans, they want to be able to, they have something to prove, I guess, relative to being a South Korean in terms of their identity.
Yeah, the thing that's been told to me by some Korean Americans is there's this feeling that if you are in Korea, it can be a little more difficult to make it and be successful, but anybody can make it in America. So the feeling is if you are a Korean, you come to America and you don't go to a good college, you don't have a good job, you don't have a fancy car, you don't do all these things that quote unquote a good Korean should do, then there's something wrong with you. And of course, that's not everyone who feels that way, but just observing certain people from multiple areas of the United States, that seems to be a common thread as to what people feel they need to be doing as a Korean American to quote unquote look successful, especially when Koreans from Korea come over.
Okay. I wanted to talk about one more article. It's titled, Why Do Some Korean Women Hide Dating a Black Man, that you wrote. You mentioned, obviously, that Korean women had to hide dating a black man, and you mentioned stories about some of the issues that some Korean women in South Korea have to go through. But when it comes to hiding the fact that they're dating a black man, can you elaborate on this?
Damn.
So, for the stories that I referenced in that article, there were some Korean women who mentioned they had dated their now husband, for maybe a year or two, but they felt like they couldn't tell their parents about it. So maybe one parent knew because they're on the phone and they're speaking in English. So obviously you're dating somebody and this person is not Korean. You're speaking English to them. But for many who are in that situation, they said they've seen their parents' reaction to them having black friends, or they've seen what other people have gone through, and they just felt nervous in the beginning because here's somebody that they like, but the perception is, well, what are people going to think? What is our family going to think? I want pure Korean grandchildren. So for a number of reasons, depending upon the situation, a woman may feel like, yes, I'm in this relationship, yes, I'm in love, but for me, I need to hide this right now and try to find the right time to say, hey, by the way, my boyfriend is black. Or some where the parents knew it, they said, you know what, if you're having a party, you can bring him, but only as your friend. You can't identify him as your boyfriend. So when you see stuff like that, you start to understand more why some women in the beginning it's not that they're not proud of their boyfriend. It's just because of things that either they've gone through or their friends have gone through. They feel like they need to hide that fact that they're dating someone who's black.
And have you heard black men confirm this as well? Have you heard their side of the story?
Yeah, I've heard where they wanted to be open about their relationship or they wanted to meet the parents, because here in Korea, it's especially important if you're thinking about marriage that the parents approve. And that goes back to part of why parents were told negative things about black people, so that parents would not approve relationships between black men, Korean women, or Korean men, black women. So when these men wanted to just basically be a man, go say hi to the parents, say, hey, I'm interested in your daughter, I'm looking to marry her, they said that they've been told that, look, you need to not see the parents right now, or that they've been told, you're not my daughter's boyfriend, you're just her friend, and they've been shunned at the beginning. But usually in those circumstances, once the marriage actually happens and the parents get to see the personality, then that ice kind of melts, and then over time they start to become accepted for being a good person.
We talked about the negative stereotypes of black.
And yes, this definitely happens where, they need time to get used to you. But don't you think it's kind of bullshit that a brother got to go through this? Like you can't accept a brother straight off the rip. I have to go through so many hardships. I got to take a bunch of slings and arrows, constant disrespect from you in order for you to get your head out of your ass and finally see me for the person I really am, instead of all these preconceptions you have about me. I think it's fucked up. Because I bet you if I was a dude, bro, it wouldn't even be in the ice in my way in the first place. Even if it was, that ice would melt as soon as it gets put in front of my face. Like it would melt very fast. And this is all I wanted to show you guys, because I wanted to show you guys, this propaganda, and that a lot of people are calling this out.